Bandwidth is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Twit Photo with Catherine Hall and Leo Laporte, episode 48, recorded March 13th, 2012, Bill Frakes. Twit Photo is brought to you by Ford, featuring curve control to help protect against crashes on curves. Look for curve control available in the 2013 Ford Taurus and learn more at ford.com/cars/Taurus. It's time for Twit Photo, my favorite time of the week when we get to talk to great photographers about their work, their art, their practice. And we've got a great photographer this week. But before we start, let me introduce the host of our show, who is in her own right a wonderful photographer, Catherine Hall, CatherineHall.net, with a C. Nice to see you. C. We're purple today.
Yes, we are. We coordinated.
Love the purple.
And we just lost our guest.
Well, we're going to call him right back. But while we're calling him right back, why don't you tell us who we're going to talk to today?
Well, he's quite accomplished in many, many areas. He was Sports Illustrated staff photographer. He has clients that range from Apple to Nike, and he got the coveted Newspaper Photographer of the Year award, and he was on the Pulitzer Prize winning team for a story back when he was working with the Miami Herald.
Well, and one of the reasons Bill Frakes, who is going to join us in a moment, we're having trouble with his Skype, is he is actually on assignment. He's shooting, of course, the March Madness, the NBA or the NCAA tournament, and he's in Nebraska right now in a Marriott shooting, I presume, the Cornhuskers, but I don't know. We'll ask him as soon as we get him back on.
315 days a year, so
wow.
I guess to get him, it's going to be on a shooting day.
There's no way around it.
Yeah, that's what it seems to be.
Yeah. All right, we're still dialing him up. We have some, this is strawhatvisuals.com. This is his company, Straw Hat Visuals, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's some great video. This is behind-the-scenes video from Straw Hat this is so cool to look at this.
I know. I can't
how he sketches out his shot. It's pretty impressive. Hey, Bill Frakes, thanks for joining us on Twit Photo.
Hey, Leo, I have to figure out how to mispronounce your last name if you're going to mispronounce.
Frakes. Frakes. You can call me Laporte. I think it's great, Bill, that you put these videos up of how you work. It's just fascinating to watch. Is that because of your work with Kelby that you started focusing on that, or is it something you've always done, is shown people how you do it?
Well, Scott's got a pretty great thing going on with his online training programs, but no, this didn't have anything to do with Scott. I've been doing this well before I did a class for Scott.
That's one of the things I admire about photographers. A lot of times they are very giving. They share how they do stuff, even though it feels like that's your secret sauce.
No, I'm not terribly worried about it. If by my explaining something to somebody makes them able to do a better job than me, then they should have had the job in the first place.
That's a good way to look at it. That's a confident
I like
guy.
that.
That's a guy. So what, you're on assignment doing March Madness right now?
I am, actually.
What's the game tonight?
I don't have a game tonight. March Madness, the first game, the games are either Thursday, Saturday, or Friday, Sunday. But,
okay.
But in my line of work, we have to show up a little bit early and do a few things in advance before the games start.
So what are you doing today? What kind of scouting are you doing?
Well, for when Sports Illustrated is a basketball game, something like March Madness, and I can only really speak for myself, not for the other photographers, because everybody has their own rhythm and their own way of doing things. But we do quite a few remote cameras.
Oh, interesting.
And at this particular venue, where I'm at in Omaha, we don't have the building. It was not lit for us, so we're lighting the building.
Wow,
that takes a while.
Yeah,
that takes a lot of gear and a lot of time.
It takes a lot of hard work.
Tell us what you're going to do for lighting. I mean, it's almost unimaginable to light a basketball stadium. How many lights are you bringing here?
4.
Just 4?
Mm-hmm. 4.
And are they going off with all cameras, or do you have different cameras with different lights?
No, all that. First of all, we use big lights when we do an arena like this.
No kidding.
Yeah. So tell us, what lights are you using here? What do you?
We're using 2,400 watt second quad heads.
Oh wow.
And I think that I have a couple different kinds of reflectors with me. I think I'm going to use the 10-inch shiny collared reflectors because I think that's the coverage I want from the light. I'll know more after we get a chance to test them, but we're putting them all in place. And remember, in a building like this, it's a big arena. I don't know what it seats exactly. I'm going to guess 15,000 people probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've only been in the arena a couple times before. It's not my home arena. So we'll have these up in the catwalks, and they'll be probably 95 feet from the floor, I'm guessing. That's just, if I went straight down, if you dropped a line straight down, it'd probably be 95 feet. I don't know. Could be 60, could be 120. I haven't measured it. But so we'll put those 4 lights up in the corners. Then we'll use a radio system, and we'll set it so that all the cameras are capable of syncing with the flashes when I fire them. I have different combinations that I can fire through different triggers, so I don't have to fire every camera on every play.
So they'll let you use these as flashes. These aren't continuous. They'll let you use these as flashes?
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised. I would think that would be distracting to the players.
Well, they've been doing this for, I don't know, 55 or 60 years now.
They're used to it.
Pretty much.
These college kids today, they ought to be used to it.
You'd think so.
So all this gear, I mean, he's traveled to all 50 states and then 125 countries.
Do you bring a bobtail truck with you?
And you're a gearhead. You're a crazy gearhead. How do you get this stuff around?
Well, I mean, there's different ways. You put it in cases, and some of it goes on a plane with us. Some of it goes with a shipping company. I call them, and they come to wherever we are, and they pick it up and take it to the next place.
Would you ever check anything on the plane?
I check 6 bags coming here.
Wow.
And what do you use to protect it? Are you using what kind of hard cases?
Well, I use different kinds of cases for that. I mean, for the camera bodies that I'm shipping under the plane, I would put those in Pelican cases. Mm-hmm. I think it's a 1652 is the case that we use. It might be 1650, something like that. It's a big Pelican case. It's pretty robust. It's got high-density foam inside. And sometimes we ship, things in those. For the most part, any camera I'm going to have in my hand is going to go on the plane with me. The remote cameras, sometimes we have to ship them under the plane. Sometimes we ship them, FedEx or UPS in advance. Just depends. I ship most of my gear, most of the support materials, the clamps, the ball heads, the lights, all that stuff I ship in Kata cases.
In fact, there's a great video at Straw Hat Visuals of the cases that you're loading up on this. Go back and show that. Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
It's pretty impressive.
So tell us about the cameras you're using.
Well, I use Nikons for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And how many? That's a crazy thing.
Well, I have a lot of them. I'm transitioning cameras right now. I was using my principal hand camera for the last, I guess, 2.5 or 3 years. And by hand camera, I'm differentiating that from a camera that I would have on a remote platform. The camera that I normally have in my hand, the bulk of the time, is the Nikon D3S.
S, yeah.
As in Sam,
yeah.
Which is the low light new. It's the most recent of the D3 cameras. They have a D3, a D3X, and a D3S. The D3S, I own 7 of those, and those are the ones that
I know.
Those are the ones you would see me on the sidelines with at a football game or something like that. I use a lot of D3s for remote. I don't really know how many D3s I have right now. A month ago, I had 27, but I've been selling some of those and buying new cameras. I just put in a pretty big order for D4s and D800s, mm-hmm. and I'm just at some point having 27 D3s didn't make sense for me anymore. Not when I was going to have, because the D3S's that I have, I prefer to the D3s just a little bit. So I'll rotate the D4s into my hand cameras as soon as they deliver. And I just got an interesting message from my good friend Jeffrey Snyder at Adorama that he was shipping me 4 of them for next week, which is a good thing.
Adorama must love you. I should point at this juncture. I want to point out that Bill is a staff photographer for SI.
Yeah.
So does SI buy these cameras? Do you buy these cameras? How does that work?
Well, that's kind of a personal question. If you want to get into that kind of thing, I'm going to have to discuss your personal finances too. But in this particular case, I'll go ahead and answer it. These 4 cameras I bought myself.
Wow. Yeah. But I imagine that you have a budget from
must...
Sports Illustrated for gear, right?
Well, Sports Illustrated has pool gear.
Right.
Just like,
but you don't want to use that crap.
No, I use it all the time.
Oh, okay.
But I do, I also want to have cameras of my own.
Right, sure.
The guys at Sports Illustrated are pretty conscientious group of guys, and they're some of the most talented photographers and most responsible people I know. So I think that by and large that the pool gear is fairly well maintained. I mean,
that's good.
It's going to take more of a beating, I think, than some may, because we. In any given year, we travel hundreds of thousands of miles, and that gear has to get shipped around. It's not like you're putting in your car and going down to, the corner and shooting.
Are the remote cameras also D3s?
The remote cameras that I'm using right now are mostly D3s, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I'm interested that you're buying some D800s.
Mm-hmm.
What are your hopes for the D800 body?
Well, I think it's a... I think it's a pretty. It's got a better footprint than a lot of things. It's lightweight, so I will not use it most likely with the finder on it. I'll use it just as a smaller body that I'll be able to carry around, and it's it's a fairly amazing camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got a huge megapixel count. It's got a full frame sensor. I mean, let me be clear about that. It has what we would traditionally consider a 35 millimeter sensor.
Right.
Every sensor is technically full frame because the full frame is replicated. But this is, if you had a 35 millimeter lens on a film body, the D4 and the D800 would both show that, as opposed to, like, say, the D7000, which would be put a 1.5 crop on it. So I plan to use I bought a couple of the D800s and a D800E, which is a slightly different body. It's got some filters that are different on it, and it has a different resolution slightly. But I expect to use it for portraiture some. I expect to use it for video a lot.
Yeah, it's an amazing video camera.
Yeah.
Seems like it. I have very limited experience with it, but what I've seen looks pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So we were noticing before that you do a lot of pre-planning with your shots. Can you tell us about that process?
Well,
for instance, I see we're looking at the Straw Hat Visuals Kata video, and
I see all these sketches.
You sketch it out. It looks like you sketch it out before you shoot.
Something like a music video or a film, I try to.
Yeah.
I can't do that as precisely with a sporting event.
So these are more storyboard style sketches than
sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you start? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Did you start doing the sketches when you started doing more video, or is that something that you've always done with your stills as well?
Well, as my career has evolved from doing stills to doing video and stills, you have to let go of some of the control. There's some things that I physically can't do anymore. It used to be when I was making a still photograph, pretty much everything that happened inside the finder, I was handling. I could, the cameras would be preset, and when you do a job like mine, I do one of the things that I do at Sports Illustrated, I've done the finish line at every major track event, like the Olympics, for example, since 1992 for the magazine.
Oh, man.
And I probably will do it in London. I mean, I know I'm going to go to London. I don't know what our exact assignment's going to be. Steve Final let me know about that. But for the most part, when I put those cameras up, I have a really good idea what they're seeing. Same with basketball. I can see in my mind what all those cameras are seeing. I can just kind of anticipate. Even though I'm not at that angle, I've looked through the camera, I've set the camera, I've decided what hyperfocal distance I want to select. And I've done a lot of pre-planning, and I've got years of experience. So I know basically how things are going to happen, or at least fairly close how things are going to happen. So, you know, I'm calculating all those things. I used to just make a list of cameras. You know, like if I was doing a big horse race or something, I just make a list of cameras and angles and how we were going to connect them and who was going to fire them or what because we use all kinds of different mechanisms for triggering these things. And I would just have a list of what I wanted to do. Well, now when you do video, you know, for me, when I'm shooting video, there's a lot of there's a lot of focus changing going on. I mean, with still cameras, if you want somebody running through the finish line at the Olympics, then what you're going to do is you're going to have the various cameras set at different distances and different lengths, and there'll be different compositions. But you know, at some point, the runner's going to go through there, and
right.
You know, and you calculate how to set those cameras so that you get the reportage you want, the coverage you want, that you need. That, you know,
I don't know why I get this visual of you with a bunch of foot pedals, each attached with a camera. I mean, how do you trigger all these remote cameras? Some obviously assistants do some of them, but don't.
We really need to get you out of the studio there and into the real world. I mean, you've got, you know, if I had, I'm not sure exactly how big you think my feet are or how big I am.
Well, how do you do it, Bill? How do you do it?
Well, that's what I said. There's all kinds of different ways to do it. Sometimes we do it with radio remotes like Pocket Wizard. Sometimes Ellen Crow makes a really great little remote called the Skyport. We use that for some things.
Well, okay, so you got a Pocket Wizard. And you have like 6 Pocket Wizards or something. I mean, how do you handle all these?
Well, you know, this goes back to the planning and so on. So some of the cameras we hardwire, some of them we put on Pocket Wizards. Occasionally, we've written some software that allows me to put these whole things into a, you know, if it's something that's going to happen at a predetermined time. Like I know, for example, pretty much how fast the men are going to run in the 100-meter final at the Olympics.
Right.
Within parameters, I know that they're going to cross a plane of focus at a certain time.
Right.
So when they start, I can trip my MacBook Pro. It's gonna count, you know, and at 4 seconds it's gonna fire these cameras.
No
at 7
kidding.
seconds it'll fire these cameras. At 9 seconds they fire another set of cameras. It's always interesting to me because I'll hear people say, well, gee, then the photographer really didn't take the picture. Well, pretty much sure that I told the computer what to do.
You took the picture.
Yeah.
I put the camera where it needed to be. I calculated the exposure. I knew what the reaction was going to be. I did the compositions.
Yeah.
I set the time. You know, the cameras didn't get out there by themselves. So that's part of the pre-planning. I mean, you know, like, for example, let's just say that the 100-meter, and I can't remember exactly in Beijing or something. I think in Sydney, Marion Jones's race was at 9:20 at night. Pretty sure that was within a few minutes, one way or the other. My assistant then was a guy named David Callow, tremendous photographer in his own right, one of the best sports photographers in the world, Australian guy, but we were longtime friends. I'm sorry, I said 92. I meant 2000. Apologize. Sydney Olympics 2000. David, you know, called me up 5 months before the Olympics, maybe even more than that, and said, hey, I can get an assignment on my own, but if I come and help you, I think we can do something really special. And I owe you a favor. And I said, well, okay, that sounds good to me. So David, you know, he'd already done previous Olympics, you know, on his own credentials, but he came and helped me. And that was fun for us. And when David was starting the industry, I spent a lot of time helping him. And so it was a very generous and kind gesture that he did to help me back. Anyway, David and I went to the track we left our hotel at 4 a.m. to set up for the day's races, the most important of which was at about 9:10, 9:20 at night. So we put in 27 or 28 remote cameras. We had the handheld cameras set, and we put in a camera that we designed and built. It's a strip camera, and that's kind of a fancy finish line camera. It had significantly higher resolution. So that camera was something that was designed and built just for my use at the Olympics. Put a lot of time into R&D on it, and it made a picture that ended up winning the gold medal in World Press that year. It was ran in Sports Illustrated as a 3-page fold-out. Wow. So, you know, we take these things pretty seriously, and there's all kinds of different ways. You know, do we fire the cameras? And a lot of it depends on how many other photographers are there. If there's, at the Olympics, there might be 750 other photographers there. And it's something like the men's 100 meters, they're all going to be there, or a large percentage of them. And even though I have proprietary channels on my Pocket Wizards, just the raw amount of radio traffic.
Oh,
yeah, I can only imagine.
It may not interfere, so nothing fires my cameras, but it may clog the bandwidth. And so I might not, the cameras may not be able to see the signal, if you can follow that line of thought. So what happens is that, in that case, I wouldn't use Pocket Wizards. If I'm by myself at an event, Pocket Wizards might be a lot easier and just as reliable as stringing cable. For something like the Olympics, we would string cable almost every time. Unless the camera's in just such a position that we can't get to it, we would always run wire.
So here's that Marion Jones picture, and you can see it's a wide, when you say strip camera, I can understand now what you're talking about. So it's capturing it's a wide aspect ratio. So
it is a wide ratio.
So you capture her crossing the finish line, and then the also rans several meters behind. That is just an incredible picture.
Amazing image, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And was that automatically triggered? You just knew?
No.
No, you triggered that one.
Yeah, David was standing by the camera and fired at a time that we'd agreed upon.
You can buy this as a print, by the way, which I think if you were a fan of track, you probably would want to. Since '92, you've been going to these great events. You've been at the finish line of all these great events. Do you get?
Well, I've been going longer than that. Just the first one I did was for Sports Illustrated. Was '92.
Do you get a little jaded, or you still get excited seeing these things? I mean, are you excited about the 2012 Olympics? About going to London?
I think the 2012 Olympics will be fun. I love London as a city. It's the competitions will be good. I mean, when we go to an event, we're not, the amount of time I spend at the facilities and the amount of time I spend in planning and transportation and logistics and things like that, it's pretty much eats up the entire time you're there. So there's not going to be a lot of, I'm not going to be walking around London, looking at Big Ben and the Tower of London and having fun. But there's a lot of professional pride involved. I mean,
oh, yeah.
It's there's a
also pressure. I can tell you're a very confident guy, but there's pressure. Mary Jones crosses the finish line once at 9:20 on that event. That's it.
That's absolutely true. But that's what we prepare for. Michael Jordan always wanted to take the last shot.
Right. That's right.
Thing.
Yep. That's confidence.
When it's time, I want to be the one pushing the button. I'm the one that I want them to trust me to make that photo record. And and I also get to have a lot of confidence because of the team I'm with. I mean, we're gonna have a whole handful of other photographers that are gonna be at that event, and when you have the other photographers that will be there working with me, like Heinz Klutmeyer, Al Tielmans, John Beaver, Peter Reed Miller, Simon Broody, Robert Beck. Wow, I should have started writing when I did that, because I don't know. I probably left somebody off the list there. But each and every one of my colleagues are, David Klutho, Walter Yost.
You're working with the best.
If I forgot somebody, I'm really sorry about that. I should have gone in alphabetical order, and I should have started. There's nobody on our masthead that isn't a world-class photographer, and these guys are going to have my back. If I make a mistake,
right.
if I fail, Heinz is going to get it, or John McDonough is going to get it, or somebody else is going to. Peter Reed. Peter Reed's shot around the bend from me every Olympics, I think, since, I don't know, I guess about since Methuselah was a baby. We've been doing these things together, and I have tremendous confidence, and I think they do in me too. We're all doing multiple remotes. We're taking this very seriously. We're bringing, most of the guys to get to the level that you're working for Sports Illustrated regularly or any top publication. You bring your A game all the time. There's no messing around. This isn't not just something you do for fun. When I go to the Olympics, I'm very serious about this. I'll take 20 cases of gear to London, and I mean, I've already started working on some of the things that I'm going to do for London. We're bringing some new technology, and there'll be things that I've never been able to do before that I'll be able to accomplish in London. And that's part of what you want to do. You want to amuse and shock and inform the readers each and every time. That's what's important to me. I mean, I'm a storyteller. I want to share my vision with anybody that wants to see it.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a break. We're talking with Bill Frakes, Sports Illustrated staff photographer. I want to ask you what technology you're going to bring, the new technology you're going to bring to.
I'm not going to tell you. So you might as well.
Come on! I'm also going to ask you.
You beg the question.
What you do for fun? If you're this serious about your work, what do you do for fun? What do you still take pictures? We'll talk about that in a second. I love this picture of a Cadillac here, by the way. But I'm going to talk about Ford right now. So we'll just take that Cadillac away and start talking about curve control on the new Ford 2013 Taurus. We were talking about autonomous vehicles on Twit this week, and I think the panel agreed that we're really heading towards that. But people don't, it makes them nervous to think of the car driving itself. And I've asked Alan Mullally, the CEO of Ford, several times, what are you doing in the labs there? And what he keeps telling me is, look, when you design an airplane, he's done a few. He designed the 777 cockpit for Boeing when he was there. When you design an airplane, you give the pilot information, you assist the pilot, but you never take the control out of the pilot's hands. There's always a human in charge. And he says, I believe that's what it's going to be like for driving. We're going to put in technologies into our vehicles that make it safer, that make it easier to drive well, that help you if there's trouble coming, and that make you a better driver. And this Ford Curve Control is a perfect example. 100 times every second in the new 2013 Ford Taurus, it checks the roll rate, the yaw rate, the lateral acceleration, the wheel spade, and the steering angle of the car 100 times a second. It's looking for, really what it's checking is how quickly the vehicle is turning versus how quickly the driver is trying to turn it. And of course, if you try to turn it faster than it can turn, what are you going to do? You're going to lose control of the vehicle. And that's exactly what Curve Control prevents. As soon as there's a problem, it reduces engine torque very rapidly, applies four-wheel braking that slows the vehicle. It can slow it quite a bit, up to 10 miles an hour per second. Wet or dry pavement, it senses the condition of the road, it senses how the wheels are responding, and it continues to correct, and that makes for a safer ride. It protects you. You cannot oversteer on curves. And it's one of several new driver assist technologies available on many Ford vehicles, including this new 2013 Taurus. I got to tell you, if you want to know more, go to ford.com/cars/Taurus. Or we've talked before about Ford.com/technology. These guys are hitting it out of the park. They are creating 21st century cars using the latest technology that makes it more fun to drive, makes it safer to drive. These are the cars you want your kids to drive. Ford.com, and you too, of course.
That's what I was thinking, the kids. Because when you're a kid and you don't...
This is on my mind because Henry's 17 and he got his learner's permit, and I've been driving around with him. Fortunately, he's a very good driver.
Yeah, how is that?
But it's scary.
Does he have moments?
It's scary, and it just makes me happy that he's coming of age at a time when cars are so much safer than they were when I was learning to drive.
Yeah.
And I'm letting him drive the Mustang because I want him.
Because you're a nice dad.
Well, I want him to learn the stick. I'm a little. I've said Henry's got his car's got a lot of power. It's a V8. This goes 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds. You've got to drive Henry. Anyway, you get the idea. It's a lot of fun. I wish I had the special edition with the brake pedal on the.
How many times before it was?
No, actually, you know what? He's actually surprisingly good. You're right. He did stall it a few times.
Yeah.
But not the. And he's great. And then of course he's great in the automatic transmission. I tell you, I'm just glad. Cars are safer than ever. And you really could thank the engineers at Ford for doing an amazing job.
Do you prefer stick or manual or auto?
I'm now getting lazy. I really love driving my Ford, and I love the stick, but I'm getting lazy. I think next one I'm looking at that Focus with the automatic.
The automatic.
So a couple of questions for Bill Frakes. First of all, what you said you're busy. You're all business when of course you are. You're working for Sports Illustrated. You're at the Olympics. You're all business.
Got 27 cameras to manage.
When you're having fun, do you still take pictures? Do you do photography for fun ever?
Sure, it's my vocation and my avocation.
That's what I like to hear. What kind of stuff do you like to shoot when it's just for fun?
Well, I like all kinds of things. I've been having a lot of fun playing with small cameras. Nikon's got a camera called the V1.
Yeah.
And I love that thing. I travel with it all the time, and it comes out a lot. And
that's
actually,
a mirrorless but interchangeable lenses, right?
It does have interchangeable lenses.
Yeah.
And it'll with an adapter, it'll take regular f-mount glass, which is pretty cool.
Oh, so you're putting that 400 millimeter lens on that?
Well, I haven't put a 400 on here yet, but I did throw a 35 millimeter f1.4 on there the other day, which is kind of interesting because because one of the things that it can do is it can run at a really high frame rate,
right?
Which gives some interesting options.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to move that mirror out of the way. Yeah,
right. And it's very lightweight. I mean, I started my career as a photojournalist, and I still think of myself that way, even when I'm doing sports or when I'm doing the documentary things. And when I shoot advertising, which I do regularly, they hire me a lot because they want it to look like a real picture. They want it to be they want it to be in a photojournalist fashion. And there's nothing wrong with people that go over the top with the way they work. Sometimes I like looking at it, but a lot of times with the photographs I shoot for advertising, you couldn't tell if it was made for Sports Illustrated or if it was made for an ad. Or, I mean, that's what they want me to do. And so I employ all kinds of different technologies. I mean, you don't make pictures with the camera. You make pictures with your heart, your eye, your mind, your soul.
Yeah.
The camera is nothing but a transfer device to let you take what's inside you and multi-purpose it across however many viewing platforms you wish to. And that's one of the great things about the video that we're doing. But, I do that. I have a 4x5, a Sinar that I use different lenses with and stuff. I don't shoot nearly as much film as I used to. I used to shoot Polaroid regularly, do a lot of nudes.
Really?
Yeah, sure. And
what do you use the 4x5 for?
Well, like I said, right now I don't use it very much because it's, the biggest problem with my career now is that I'm in motion so much that I don't have the luxury of traveling with things that I don't need. One of my colleagues, Robert Beck, who I think is an absolute genius. He's as well-rounded and wonderful a photographer in the world, and he travels with a lot of gear. But we were in Beijing, and when we were leaving, a couple of us were going to the airport at the same time, and I had, Laura Heald, who works with me a lot, and I had, 16 cases of gear. And Robert and Kojo, the guy who was working with him, rolled downstairs, and they had, about the same. And Robert had his guitar, an acoustic guitar, and he was playing it. And I thought, wow, how cool is that he thought to bring his acoustic guitar? And I said something to Laura, and she said, you would have never used it because we were always too much in motion.
Right.
And the fact that he took some, I don't know what the right word is. He took pleasure in having his guitar there, and he brought it. It was important to him. And that's, he's a Southern California kid, and he's older than me, so I guess he's not a kid anymore, although he sure acts like it sometimes. But he's when you look at his work, he's joyous and ebullient, and there's a lot of surfer guy in there. And so it just fit that he, at least in my Nebraska-esque vision of what a California kid would be, it just makes sense. I bet if I would have gotten into his cases, I would have found a surfboard in there too. But
I was going to say. Here's a great shot that I'm sure wasn't shot for Sports Illustrated. We're on your website, billfrakes.com, and it's of four somewhat portly golfers. Obviously, one of them just got a great shot off. It's raining down. I love it that you still take sports photos. Obviously, this was for fun, unless maybe it's an ad. Is this an ad?
Man, I tell you what, I think, Catherine, we need to start getting him into some wagers because he's not very good at this stuff.
Oh, no, really? What did I get wrong?
Well, let's see. First of all, you said you're sure it wouldn't be for Sports Illustrated when, in fact, it was shot on an assignment for Sports Illustrated.
Oh, my goodness. Of what? Fat golfers and their...
Yeah, actually. It's. I hope you're prepared to feel at least a little bad. It was for a tournament at Yale.
Oh!
Oh, no. Well, that's his alma mater.
That's my alma mater.
Yeah, I know. I read about you, but you clearly didn't read about me.
I didn't learn anything there, obviously.
Yeah. Well, there's a chef in New Haven that has a golf tournament hosted at Yale.
Oh, how funny.
You have to be at least, in this particular year, I believe the cutoff was 325 pounds. It might be more. and the money that they raise from the tournament, they give to obesity research.
That is fantastic. But this is such a great shot. I just love it. And it feels like the kind of shot you'd do for fun.
Well, it was fun.
Yeah.
I had a great time with these guys. And in the middle of the
Pouring
day.
rain.
Yeah. So you're talking about telling story and how it crosses over doing your journalism coverage to your commercial work. How do you bring the story to commercial assignments?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I guess usually when I'm doing a commercial assignment, they have the art director has a pretty good idea what he wants to do, and he or she will give me some sort of a brief about what that might be, and then I just go ahead and put my spin on it.
They kind of tell you the story in a way, right? You have to capture the story they tell.
Well, it depends on the assignment. I mean, depends
I
on
just love this
how
Marion Jones shot.
it depends on how good the art director is and how much what
Right.
they've told by the client, and how much freedom they have.
Right.
But if it's an art director that, a lot of times you'll get a sketch and they'll say, "I need it to show this,"
Right.
and
This ad looks like an ad. I'm going to try another guess. Let's try another wager. He's wearing
Go, Leo, go.
I know, Bill, that you're not seeing our video, so you can't see what I'm looking at. Again, I'm on your site. This is in the games portfolio. A guy is doing the breaststroke. He's got a yellow Speedo cap on. Is that actual competition?
I don't know which exact
Oh,
picture
shoot,
you're looking at.
Yeah, you can't see it, unfortunately.
Is he coming right into me?
Right at you.
That was done for the launch of the Nikon D3S.
I knew it. All right, I
There
finally
you go.
got one
You
right.
got one.
I got
Now
one.
you're even. Now you're even.
So you're going to use the
No,
800E?
No, wait. Yeah,
Well-
you're saying he's even on his guesses?
Yeah.
Well, no, but he's missed 3 already. This is the first.
I'm not keeping track, but apparently
But I
Bill
am.
is.
Right.
So you're having, one of the things I noticed with your work is even when it's lit and planned and sketched out, it still has a real sense of action.
Oh, yeah.
And like we're playing the game, the guess game. We can't tell if it's for an ad or if it's journalist coverage. So my question to you is, how do you bring that sense of realism in a directed environment?
That's. I really don't really know how to answer that. I guess everything I do, I have some control over because I spend so much time in preparation.
Prep, yeah.
So if I go to the finish line at the 100 meters of the Olympics, I didn't know Marion was going to win by that much.
Right.
But that particular day, I already told you I had 29 cameras, 27 remotes, the strip camera. Well, actually, I had 3 strip cameras, so it was 30. So I had 31 cameras at the finish line. So I was ready if she looked left or looked right. I was ready if she came straight into me and had her head down. I was ready with a wide lens in case somebody out in lane 8 did something unbelievably stunning and won the race, because I couldn't just shoot Marion. I focused my efforts on Marion because I thought it was going to be one of the penultimate races in the Olympics, and she had said she was going to win 5 gold medals, and I didn't see any reason to think that she might not. And if she did, that was going to be a big deal for Team USA. So I had to focus on that. I had to plan for that. I had to be ready for that. And the same thing is true with advertising. When I do a shoot like that swimmer, we had spent a lot of time finding that pool. And the guy that was swimming was from the Australian Olympic team, and I knew he was good. I had photographed him in the Olympics. I knew what he looked like when he swam. I had looked at videotape of how he swam. We found the pool that we wanted. We made sure that we had the weather forecast. We made sure that we had, the only thing we didn't count on was a slight wind that day, and it was there was a heated pool. It was outside. It was in Melbourne, Australia, and it was in July, which meant that it was really cold. So it was, I guess it was about 8 or 9 degrees above the water, maybe 7.
Oof.
So every time I raised myself up, I was freezing.
Yeah.
And he wasn't doing that well either.
Oh, you're in the water.
Oh yeah, I'm in the water. And that's the difference. That's the difference between that picture and one you would make
Right.
at a regular swim meet,
Yes.
because that's why the angle is so low.
Of course, yeah.
I had a 600 millimeter lens on a big Gitzo tripod.
Jeez.
In the water.
In the water. That is
Yeah,
so cool.
it's about 1.5 inches out of the water.
Wow. Yeah, preparation, it's perfect. And I'm looking at, and this is, I imagine, the kind of image you're probably going to be shooting in March Madness. This looks like it's a Durham basketball player in black is about to step on Williams, number 20. And a couple of things come to mind. First of all, the lighting is perfect on this. Not just on the players, but you can see every face, the detail of the crowd. It is part of what makes this. This is almost a Norman Rockwell. I mean, look at this guy, you know, and the face that he's making. Everybody, there's something. There's so many stories in this one image. It's fascinating.
Okay, are you talking about the Duke image? Maybe
it looks like it's Duke. Yeah.
Yeah, you said Durham. Yeah, but which Duke is in Durham, so there you go.
That's right. It says Durham, but I see the player is, I think, a Duke player. Yeah.
Yeah. That picture was lit.
I can tell. So then now I understand why you light the stadium.
Yep. You know, other people may make a similar picture of that, but, you know.
Nobody's going to get that one.
Not with that kind of, you know, top to bottom, you know, not with that kind of top to bottom sharpness, not with everything there side to side. I mean, you wouldn't be able to see the fans the same way. It's the depth of field in that that's making the difference.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
What is that? It looks like F-16 or something.
Probably I'm guessing it was probably closer to 7.1, but you know, on a lens that's that wide, I'm pretty sure that I shot that on a 28-70.
But now I understand why you want those fast cameras, why you want the D4 and the D3S, because you need enough speed. And so, what ISO are you shooting at?
Oh man, see, Catherine. Tell him. I should have bet with him again, shouldn't have I?
I'm going to say it's you're shooting at 400.
That's probably ISO 100.
100, really?
I'm on strobe.
Oh, you're on strobe.
Yeah, so
Got
he
it.
doesn't
Got
have
it.
to.
You have because you're not. That's right. I forgot you're not on continuous light. But you wouldn't. Nobody else. I'm sure others got the players. But look at the expressions of the fans.
Story of it.
It really is the story. The ref, the guys in the front row. It's just dramatic as heck. Amazing shot. And this player, there's a fan up here. I just love it. I just love it. It's Norman Rockwell. And you know, and again, I could see where it's planning, because you don't know in a basketball game. There's no finish line. You don't know where that's going to happen.
Well, you can have a pretty good idea they're going to come to the hoop, because they're always going to come to the hoop.
Right. But this is not at the hoop.
No, but it's about 10 feet in front of it.
Right.
But, you know, so you're sitting there that's why you have that zoom in your hand.
So do you like playing with gear as much as you like taking photos?
Not really.
No?
Really?
Come on,
No.
you're a gadget hound. I can tell. You're talking about all the cool technology you're going to bring to the Olympics.
I want to know. This is interesting. So you went to school for economics, and then you went to law school.
Oh, that explains a lot. You're very detail oriented, right?
Yeah. So tell us.
I am.
Yeah.
What caused the change of course of action?
Do you know any lawyers?
Yeah.
No,
I don't know any happy lawyers. The happiest lawyers I know are former lawyers.
Yeah, no, the education process is, it's just something you have to go through. And you know, I loved my time at the University of Mississippi. I loved Arizona State, where I went to undergraduate school. I loved University of Kansas when I was in school there. You know, I have a degree from Kansas in journalism. I have a degree from Arizona State in economics. I loved all these experiences. So it's all about just opening your mind to the different possibilities, I think. And I continue to study every single day. I spend about an hour every day doing some sort of technical study, you know, trying to stay.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, you have to. You know, that's just how it goes. If you don't, this is one of the reasons I don't mind sharing with people, because I can fairly well guarantee that at any given event there's going to be lots of different photographers there, and there are going to be a lot of people that are they're going to have incredible talent. There's going to be a lot of people that have the ability to make good images, but there are very few people that are going to have the determination and the stamina and the strength to work it all the way through the way I'm going to.
Do you think you're smarter than most of your I won't say colleagues, competitors. We know your colleagues are all smart. But it sounds like you're very intellectual about this as well. I mean, look, every photographer has to have a heart.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you've also, an hour of study a day?
Pretty much. You know, whether I'm smarter or not isn't really the issue. The issue is whether or not I'm better prepared. And I would say that, yes, I'm probably better prepared than most of the people that I'm competing with.
You've got to be the hardest working guy out there.
You know, there's a few others that work pretty hard. I mean, Heinz Klutmeyer was a huge influencer. You guys are having a good giggle there.
I'm looking at your Calaveras County. It's got to be the jumping frog competition. This woman,
it is.
She's yelling at the frog.
Yeah. It's actually in Ohio, but yeah, I got it from Mark Twain. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And like you deal with somebody like Heinz Klutmeyer or any one of it. I'm online a lot at night editing. And I'll look over and the names of my friends that pop up at 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning are the names of the people that you would expect to. The best, a lot of the best photographers in the industry. I mean, last night, middle of the night, I was working on a project I have and see David Burnett over there,
Yeah.
Or Tyler Hicks might jump on, or I mean, who knows who's and I'm not talking to these guys every time I see him online or anything. I mean, in fact, I don't even know I think I've talked to Tyler a handful of times in my life, but we're Facebook friends, and I see him on there, and I know that he's working somewhere, and I know that David Turnley, who's a fantastic photographer, his twin brother Peter Turnley, they're two of the world's best photographers. I see him online at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and I can see from their comments that they're stateside, so they're not, it's not like they're, in Europe or Asia, and it's later in the day. They're here and they're working because that's the time to get stuff done, and that's how it is with a lot of the people that are really good. If you look at, I've had the good fortune during my career to know guys like Eddie Adams and Gordon Parks, and that's what they're doing. They were working all the time. You couldn't have a conversation with Gordon when he wasn't creating something, or Bill Epridge, or these guys are all in motion all the time. And when I say guys, by the way, I'm using that as a unisex term because I'm from the Midwest. So it's and this isn't just males. This is most of my friends my colleagues in the industry are working really hard. That's just part and parcel of how this goes. I'll see SI's writers online. It's hard to get away from it.
Yeah.
You live, breathe your
look at that shot.
Through it, yeah.
Well, sure. My wife's a television news anchor.
How do you have a wife? That's the question.
She's busy.
I got lucky with that. That's for sure.
Where does she work?
She works for CBS in Florida.
Cool. So you gave us 2 images that are 2 of your favorites, and now I'm thinking that this baby must be yours.
Which one?
There's a baby in a chair.
And it looks like a hospital bed.
Or it's a hospital bed, all by herself.
That's my daughter, Havana.
I had a feeling. That's neat. I guessed right.
I love that angle and just the showing how tiny she is,
Yeah, she was 5 minutes old.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
Do photographers' children have lots of pictures taken of them, or none at all?
Well, mine does. I don't know about anybody else. And from some of the Christmas cards I get, I'm guessing that some of them photograph their kids. It's interesting to have this kind of a lifestyle. I mean,
You travel a lot. I mean, you're not home.
Yeah,
sure.
a lot of the process is that even though we're talking, it seems like you're talking to me about photography right now. When I'm with my friends, for the most part, we're not talking about photography necessarily. I mean, we share information pretty openly and pretty freely. But tonight, there's 2 photographers that I'm planning to see tonight when I go out. One is Ted Kirk and one's Joel Sartori. And they both live in Lincoln. They're both guys that have been friends with me. Ted for at least 3 decades or more. Joel for probably the same. And Ted is the chief photographer at the Lincoln Journal-Star, and he's one of the best newspaper sports photographers in America. and just an all-around good photographer. But, I mean, when you see his sports stuff, he's just like, wow. And it's a name that you probably haven't heard a lot. You should have, but he works for the Journal-Star, does some really beautiful corporate aviation stuff, but he's low-key. He's not entering a lot of contests. He's not doing a lot of self-promoting. He's running a photo department and making a lot of other people's lives better, and he's shooting brilliant images that the people of Lincoln get to absorb all the time. Joel Sartori, of course, is one of the stars of the National Geographic. And we've all known each other for a long time. We're all friends. And when Laura Heald, who works with me a lot from Sports Illustrated, we're going to drive from Omaha down to Lincoln and see those guys tonight. And my guess is that other than a cursory, they'll have some questions for me about the D4 because I did the worldwide launch of the D4 for Nikon. And so I'm about 150,000 frames into those cameras already. And very few other people have actually seen them. So they're going to have some questions about them, about what they can do and stuff like that. Once we get through with that, we're going to talk about Nebraska football. We're going to talk about the weather. We're going to talk parents, grandparents. We'll talk about Joel's kids. They're going to want to know about Havana. And we're going to talk with Ted. Ted is almost guaranteed to bring me a list of new music I need to listen to because he's
that's great.
He's the guy, and probably some novels, and I'll do the same for him. And I don't know what Joel's gonna bring. Probably, some sort of aggravation of some kind. I just saw Joel at a seminar at the National Geographic a few weeks ago. But that's what we do. I mean, one of my best friends is a guy named Todd Corll. He's one of the best photographers in Western Canada. But he's not my friend because he's one of the best photographers in Western Canada. We've been friends since he was 21 years old. And he asked me some questions. I guess I was 26 or 27. And we just started corresponding. And I don't know the last time we talked purely about photography. We talked about the guys that are really good at this. And again, I want to emphasize, when I say guys, I'm not talking about men. I'm talking about the people that are really good at this aren't talking about how. We're talking about why. We're talking about social issues. We're talking about artistic issues. We're talking about the things that motivate us, that want to help us contribute to society, the visual imprint that we're going to leave on society. So when I talk to Todd, I'm not talking to him about what camera he's using. I'm talking to him about what he photographed and why, and what the story was, and what the evolution of the story was. And that's we're journalists and storytellers. We're not talking technique. Unless somebody has a specific question that they can't resolve, we just don't talk about those things. I can't even tell you what cameras Todd's shooting with right now. And he's been one of my, if this is a morbid way to put it, but if I died tomorrow, Todd would be a pallbearer. And I don't know what kind of cameras he's using. even though he's actively engaged in making photographs 310, 320 days a year, like I am.
Right.
No idea, because it just doesn't come up.
Right.
I know what he's shooting. I know what he's been working on. He's just coming off the World Curling Championships, which I think is pretty funny. But
that's an action sport.
Yeah.
He works for Reuters a lot, and he's based in Canada, so that's what they do.
Going on that, Bill. I have a quote about your mom that I thought would be suited for this. Many years ago, Agnes Frakes pointed out images all around her tiny Nebraska town to her 4-year-old son, Bill. A cat's shadow, a pool of oil beneath the car, his own name etched in a cookie tray of caramel popcorn. The boy looked at the objects and saw nothing. "Look again," she said. "There's always more there than what you see with your eyes." So, what is that? Can you explain that to us? And how did you learn to see?
Well, I don't know which part you want to explain. I mean, that was written by an author. His name is James McBride. And that was from the foreword to a book. One of the books he's most famous for is a book called The Color of Water, which is a tribute to his mother. And he's a New Yorker. I don't know how to explain it. He's an extremely important writer and author. He's more or less my age. He writes biographies, memoirs, nonfiction, basically. And he was a staff writer. I think pretty sure he was at the Washington Post and the Boston Globe. I can't remember. You know, I've seen his work in Essence, Rolling Stone, the New York Times, National Geographic. He did a story called Hip Hop Nation. You know, this is a tremendous writer. And so when they did this book, was called Family, and it's a compilation of works by a whole number of photographers. And when he wrote the foreword, I was one of the people he called to interview, and he called my mom, and he talked to her, and she talked to him about me growing up and what it was like when I was a little boy. And he asked me some questions about what that was like too. You know, when you grow up in a place like western Nebraska, it's different than – it's a different existence than if you're growing up in New York City, for example, because there's not nearly the same kind of artificial stimuli everywhere. There's not pizzerias, and heck, I think the first time I had pizza was, you know, in my hometown was when I was either 9th or 10th grade when a pizzeria finally came to town. There wasn't one. And, you know, first time I saw a bagel, I was 18. You know, I was visiting a friend out at Stanford, and I remember that. It's a seminal, very important moment for me the first time I had a bagel, because I've had a lot since then. But
it's the beginning of a great friendship.
Yeah, exactly. You know, at least he did something useful in our friendship. But no, he's one of my best friends for life. But anyway, you know, so, you know, when you grow up in a town like that, there's not, you know, there's a lot of wonderfulness there, but there's no skyscrapers. There, you know, we had, you know, you have a movie theater. You don't have a lot of the same kinds of things. There's no giant libraries. There's no theater. You know, there's no ethnic restaurants. You know, there's just none of those things that you think about as with visual diversity, and it's just a very simple existence. But the one thing you grow up with when you grow up in that environment is the complete absence of fear. There was nothing there that would ever want to hurt me outside of a few wild animals, you know? And so I grew up with a real openness mentally and physically in terms of approaching things. There's no place that I'm afraid to go. There's no one I'm afraid to talk to. You know, I'll walk up to anybody on the street and start talking to them. And when you're a photojournalist, and as I said, I still consider myself a photojournalist, even though I deal in other genres of work. My heart is that of a photojournalist. And so I think that the most important thing to be successful in this is the ability to fall in love every day. If you can do that and you have the right kinds of talent, you can be pretty successful as a photographer. Drive, dedication, and the ability to fall in love every day. And so I was fortunate. My mother was a tremendous visual artist in her own right. She's not, you know, recognized or anything like that, but there was nothing my mom couldn't make or build or sculpt or figure out. If she saw something, she could construct it with paper or with cloth or with wood or with metal. And she spent 50 years as an educator, actually probably more than that, because she was still doing some substitute administrating and teaching up right before she died when she was 84. And they would still ask her to come back to schools and teach. So my mom was a teacher her entire life, you know. And I got the benefit of having that every single day. And I didn't know when I was one that she was raising me to be an artist, but that's precisely what she was doing.
You are fortunate indeed, and so are we.
I was, absolutely.
These images, you are a photojournalist, absolutely. Every image I'm looking, and if people haven't gone to your website, go to billfrakes.com and just browse the images. You've blessed us with hundreds of really. Each one, I don't know, you probably heard me gasping every few seconds.
I've gone and looked at Leo with my mouth open.
Just incredible, dramatic stories. Some of them make you laugh, some of them make you gasp. Just really great stuff. And Bill,
thank you very much.
It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
We have his tips really quick.
All right, let's get 3 tips from Bill Frakes.
When you have great light, look 180 degrees the other direction.
You want to elaborate, Bill?
Well, if you're looking at something you really love, and you're loving it because of how the light works, if you turn around and look over your shoulder, chances are that light's going to be diametrically opposite but equally great in the other direction.
Oh, great. I love that.
So do you shoot the way you like it, and then you kind of challenge yourself to turn around?
Sometimes, because, you know, when you're being a photojournalist or when you're charged with a certain kind of communication responsibility where, you have to communicate things in different fashions, and maybe looking at something soft and backlit really isn't what's happening there. Maybe you need to see it in full on frontal light. So sometimes I'll change just because, you don't want to write the same way every single time.
Right.
The other thing is that sometimes, if you're just looking at something that's beautiful, I just will turn because I want to make pictures. I just, and it's not just, in this particular case, it's about my pictures. But, the one question you guys didn't ask that I expected you to ask was that, how much I like photography in general. And I probably have in the neighborhood of 4,000 to 5,000 photo books.
Wow.
I have an immense library. My friend Martin Gisborne from Apple says that of all the people he's been around, I have one of the 2 or 3 biggest collections, and he knows a lot of people. And he likes books, so I trust his analysis of that. I can't wait. Like one of my friends will have a new book out. Howard Schatz, for example, just has a fairly new book out called With Child. I could have called Howard and said, hey, when you get one in, let me have it. And he, I'm sure, would have accommodated me because that's how he is. But I didn't do that. I went to the bookstore practically daily for 3 weeks until I finally got my hands on a copy because I wanted to look at it before I called him. And, and like everything else he does, it was brilliant. So I got to call him and say, hey, just look at your new book. It was brilliant. And so there you go. That's just part and parcel of the whole photography thing. And you get that, this spins back to the looking at like thing because I learned that lesson looking at Bill Epridge's work. Epridge would shoot something, and then you'd look over you'd look at his contact sheets, which I've had the good fortune to do more than once, and I would see him spinning around, and all of a sudden the light would be perfect in the opposite direction, but the message was completely different. I thought, wow, that's interesting. And so just from watching that on his contact sheets, I was able to. Gene Smith, same thing. And, I was able to learn it from that. So it's not really something I figured out. It's something I got from somebody else.
Great. So your second tip is pay attention to where you are physically.
Yeah, if you're that was a sports photographer tip. Yeah. If you're or a photojournalist tip, I suppose. But, a lot of the things that I do, whether I'm on the sidelines of a football game or if I'm covering a conflict or a natural disaster, if you make a mistake and you step in the wrong place, you're going to get hurt, and so is somebody else. Additionally speaking, if you're at a sporting event and you step out, your callous lack of respect for everybody else, you can end up blocking everybody else's shot, the people that didn't step across the line. See that a lot, and it's very frustrating.
And this is a big one, and I totally agree. Use supports when capturing video.
Yep, that's pretty much.
No handheld video, huh?
Well, sometimes that's why I said most of the time. There's a time when I just completed a music video with Violante Placido, who's a Italian movie star, and there's a chase scene in this music video where we needed to put a handheld camera in there because we wanted to be a little bit in motion and you wanted it to look like it was running with her. So we did that. It wouldn't have had the same emotion if it was on a support. But most of the time, putting it on a tripod, a jib, a slider, a crane, a dolly, it's a good idea because you got to do it. Otherwise, you're going to get seasick. And it's just lazy not to.
Shaky cam got, MTV kind of got everybody. It became a fashion.
Yeah,
but I'm with you.
When you see it done right, when it's smooth, it's just like.
Well, and if you look at Bill's pictures, there's such detail, such crispness, such you can see. You want the same in video. You want that detail, and you can only do that if it's on
So, Bill,
sticks.
do you use the Cinovate table dolly the most, or what are you using typically to stabilize?
Well, you asked for an unusual piece of gear, and you specifically ask about in the camera bag. Okay. The table dolly is a great little. It's a slider basically, and you can put it on high tension wires. You can put it on a couple pieces of PVC pipe, or you can just put it flat on the floor and roll it along. And so it's got a lot of different applications. the piece of gear that I use most of the time for doing this kind of work is actually the Cinovate Atlas 200, which is a big, heavy slider. But that's a chassis and rail system that, we use it a lot with 9-foot rails. And I don't know what those solid, stainless steel rails weigh, but I'm guessing each one of the rails is 60 pounds, 70 pounds. So you have two of them. You're at 140 pounds, and then you have to sit it on something, and you got the chassis, which weighs 8 or 9 pounds. So that's what I usually use when I'm, and we'll lock that down and use it like a tripod, we usually put a fluid head on there. Most of the time, I'm putting a Manfrotto 509 fluid head on, and sometimes I support it on apple crates. Sometimes I support it on other tripods, but that doesn't really fit in my camera bag, so that's why I didn't mention it.
Got it.
That'd be a big camera bag.
Some of these, I'm looking at some of the videos on Strahat Visuals, and the Istanbul video, I think, had some slider style video in it. Where
yeah, it did.
Yeah,
we used a couple different ones there.
There's a jib right there.
Yeah, that's a big Jimmy jib that we rented in Istanbul. We didn't bring a jib with us. Here in the States, we use a different kind. We use an Easy Effects jib, which is for a still photographer that's, working. Because I'm not working with a big crew most of the time. I'm working with a very small crew, usually 2 or 3 people. Because depending on who I'm working for, whether it's broadcast television or if it's SI.com or if I'm doing an iPad piece, unless I'm doing a full-blown ad, we're usually working with 2 or 3 people because we've got to get in and out and the budgets are smaller. So we use things that are controllable.
Yeah.
We use a Kessler crane a little bit. We have a Kessler crane with 2 oracles that we used a lot in Istanbul.
We got to run because there's another show coming up, but it has been such a pleasure, Bill, to talk to you. And as we've been talking, we've been browsing around the site, and there's still so much more that we didn't get to show, especially the video that you shoot.
Yeah.
That's very inspiring. I almost want him to come back just talk about shooting video, because now with this D800, and it's just everybody's shooting video. It's a very interesting and challenging thing to do.
And all the behind-the-scenes videos are really neat to watch as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I had a lot of fun. We did that Istanbul video was done with the Nikon D4, which I understand, as I mentioned about an hour and a half ago or whenever we started, I think they're actually shipping that this week, so I'm pretty excited about that.
That's the rumor, yeah, at the end of the week.
Yeah,
and the D800 soon, too, apparently, which is...
Hope so.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to get my hands on them.
As we all are.
It's great stuff.
As we all are. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you so much.
BILLFRAKES.com. Do go see this amazing stuff. Just incredible footage. And enjoy your return to Nebraska.
It's the wrong end of the state, but I will.
Okay, good. They may not have pizza, but they got a lot of corn. I know that. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
All right, take care.
Bye.
BillsFrakes.com. Frakes.com. I got his name wrong. And one last time just to give him something to
and then also,
chew on.
Trey, last night for his variety hour, he talked about camera insurance. So I think that was
an interesting subject, wasn't it? And he was talking about it
too.
Because his D3X got damaged in Hawaii, and he was wondering, gee,
because it was raining and raining.
Yeah, man. So. Catherine Hall is at catherinehall.net. That's her website. Go there to find out more and see her portfolio. Some great images. And
then next week we have Peter Krog in studio.
My favorite guy.
I know.
The author of the Digital Asset Management book.
Yeah, so it should be fun next week.
And another great photographer in terms of creativity. He's always thinking of different ways to shoot things. He should be a lot of fun. Peter Krog Jones is next week.
He's coming to see you, Leo.
And I love Peter. It'll be great to see him again. I haven't seen him since Australia. This is one of my favorite Bill Frakes images. We'll leave you with this one, The Girl and Fish. Thank you. I like the tiara. I don't know why, but the tiara really makes that shot.
It does.
Thank you for joining us. Make sure you tune in every Tuesday at 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern for Twit Photo. And if you have missed any of our many episodes, you'll find them all at twit.tv. Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
we'll see
Leo.
you next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.